If you make a commitment, follow it. If you make a commitment and you break it, you're more likely to break the next commitment. So fight hard to keep that first commitment, because once you start breaking commitments, then it just becomes a pattern. It just becomes a habit. This is who you are. So our integrity is tested by our commitments. So we're going to look at the subject tonight of integrity. We're kind of closing out the year. We've been going through the book of Proverbs all year. So we are kind of taking different themes that we can spend maybe a Sunday on or a particular sermon on, but don't necessarily take any more time than that. What I mean by that is that, like we picked a lot of subjects early in the year that it took the whole month to go through, or it took 8 weeks or so to go through. But we're going to talk tonight about this subject of integrity. So what does it mean to have integrity? Integrity is a person who you can count on their word. So what they say, they will do. There used to be a time where what a person said, a handshake, was a commitment. That was all that was needed, is you give somebody your word and you give them your bond, in a sense that your word was your bond. And yet now, I don't know if you have signed a contract recently, but they're 67 pages long, and all of these make sure that you're doing this and this, and everybody's covering their bases, because we have kind of slipped into a time where we're not necessarily people of great integrity. We're not really people of our word. And one of the things that should, I believe, define a Christian should be that they are a person of integrity, that they are a person who does what they say that they're going to do. So I want to break the sermon into 3 groups or 3 sections. One is, let's talk about why the book of Proverbs says we should live in integrity, live with integrity. 2, how our integrity is tested. So how can you expect your integrity to be tested in your life? And then we'll close with what happens when we live with integrity. If we live a life of integrity, what's the byproduct of that? So let's start with why be a person of integrity. Well, the most important and most obvious one is the first one, and that is because a person of integrity pleases God. A person of integrity pleases God. Proverbs 11 and verse 20 says, "Those who are of a perverse heart are an abomination to the Lord, but the blameless in their way are his delight." I've always thought of Job. When you read the book of Job, one of the things that's really, I guess, jumped out to me or spoke to me was, remember God said when he's having this conversation with Satan, he says, "Have you considered my servant Job? There's nobody like him on the earth." And I think that is an incredibly powerful statement, that he was a man that was blameless. He was a man of integrity. He was a man that kept his word. He was a man of faith. And so the same thing is true for us. It pleases God when we live lives of integrity. When we say we're going to do something and we fulfill that commitment, it pleases God. And this should be obviously motivation enough. Like I want my dad to be pleased with me. I want my Heavenly Father to be pleased with me. And I understand that because of our relationship with God through Jesus Christ, he is pleased with us. But I just don't want to be in the family. I want to be a good kid in the family. I want my dad to be pleased with me. I want to live a life that brings him honor and brings him glory. And so I think when we live a life of integrity, this pleases God. So that's the first thing that we learn from Proverbs. The second thing we learn is that if we live a life of integrity, not only will it please God, but it will also benefit others. It will benefit others. Proverbs 12:27 says this, "A righteous man walks in his integrity. His children are blessed after him." So legacy, when you turn 50, legacy is something you start thinking about. When you're 28, you don't really think about that. But when you turn 50, you start thinking about a little bit about legacy. And if I can just speak from a personal perspective, is, my life has been pretty easy in some ways because of the fact that I'm Stan and Sharon Doss's kid. And what I mean by that is that I didn't come back to Topeka, I didn't go somewhere else because my parents had a good reputation here. So I didn't run from this town because it was like, oh no, you're a DOS kid. I've never had that said in my life. I've never had somebody say, oh, you're a DOS, meaning that they knew who my father was and they knew who my mother was. The only time I've ever heard anything is that this is a good thing, that, man, your parents are great people and good luck keeping up with that. That I think I've heard more of that than necessarily that they had a bad reputation. So my parents have made life in so many levels easy for me because of the life that they have lived, because they have been people of integrity. They paid their bills, they were good citizens. They're a benefit to society. They're a benefit to the community. And so consequently, it's made my life easier. It's made my life, I have reaped the benefits of being their kid because of their integrity. And I try to think about that a lot now that I'm getting older, and I think about the next whoever will be the next pastor here. Because I have a lot of friends who have been they have gone into churches and they've taken over churches where it's been a disaster. They've had to follow some guy that didn't have integrity. One of my closest friends in Maryland, he took a church where the pastor that was there before him ran off with the secretary, and they think probably swindled at least $250,000 from the church. And so my friend had to walk into that. Well, look, if you go in and you pastor a church after that, they don't really trust you. And rightfully so, because the guy before was a mess, and you're in the same position that he was. So it took him years and years and years and years and years to where they would actually trust him and believe in him and not associate him with the next guy. So I try to think about that a lot for the next guy that comes here. Like, I want him to walk into a really good situation. I want him to walk into a good situation as far as financially goes. I want him to walk into a good situation as far as trust goes. And so, I think, so I want to keep my life right because I want to help the next guy. And, one of the greatest things that you can do for your kids is to live a life of integrity and make their life easier, because you've lived a life that you have a good reputation in the community. You have a good reputation with the people around you, because it's going to benefit them if you'll just do the right thing. And that's what he's saying here. He say his children are blessed after him. So if I'll do the right thing and live with integrity now, then it benefits my kids after me. It'll benefit Matthew, Cameron, and Courtney if I live a life of integrity. I don't want them messes to clean up. I want them a legacy to continue. So it benefits others. And then the third reason why we should live with integrity is because it simplifies life. So the writer of Proverbs is talking about this issue of integrity, and the benefit of living a life of integrity is it simplifies life. So Proverbs 10:9, he who walks with integrity walks securely, but he who perverts his ways will become known. Okay? So a person that lives with integrity is not always looking over their shoulder, or not always having to check their word. Okay, so I lied to this person. What did I tell this person? See, if you just tell the truth all the time, you don't have to wonder who you told the truth to and who you told a lie to. So what we do in life is a lot of times we complicate our lives because we don't tell the truth. So if we tell the truth, it just makes life simple. Like I don't have anything to hide. If you have something to hide, you're going to make your life very difficult. So if you're doing something unethical at your job, and your boss walks in on you, you're not, oh, let me shut down the computer. But let me not see let him not see what I'm doing. But if I have integrity, it just makes life simple. I don't have to hide anything. I am who I am. I'm doing the right thing. I have nothing to hide. I'm not looking over my shoulder. There's a certain amount of security that comes just by living a life of integrity. And that's why I want to encourage you to do it, because everybody talks about reducing stress. You want to reduce stress? Just do the right thing. Live a life of integrity. Man, I don't want to take this call. It may be a bill collector. Then pay your bills. Right? I mean, it's just, if Don't overextend yourself to this point where I can't pay my bills and then I have people on me all the time. It just, when we live with integrity, it just simplifies life. And we make our lives too hard. Life's hard enough the way it is. We don't need to add pressure to ourselves. So that's what he's saying here. If you walk with integrity, you walk securely. But anybody who's doing something wrong, they know in their heart, they know that they're going to be found out. This is why we try to hide. Be not deceived, God is not mocked. Whatever a man sows, that he'll also reap. Isn't it amazing how the truth seems to always come out? It is to me. Like this is not a big town. This is not a small town, but it's not a big town, but it's a lot of people here. How do these criminals get caught? In a town this size? Because you just give yourself away half the time. Because you will get, your sins will find you out. You will get caught. So live with integrity. It just makes your life a whole lot simpler. It just makes your relationship simpler. It makes your interactions with people simpler. If you just tell people the truth, if you do what you're supposed to do, it just simplifies life. Now, we are going to find ourselves being tested 3 ways when it comes to integrity. There are 3 ways that you can expect your integrity to be tested. One is through money. The first is through money. There is I didn't put any verses up there, but Proverbs 22:1 is a great one. A good name is to be chosen rather than great riches, loving favor rather than silver and gold. Money makes people crazy. It just does. The Bible says that the love of money is the what? The root of all evil. So it's not money is not evil, but the love of it. And there's a lot of people that love it. They love it and they think that it'll bring them happiness and it'll bring them joy. And so this is why so many people play the lottery, because they have this belief that if I had all this money, that then I would be happy and I would be joyful and my life would be different and it would be better. So if I'm not going to win the lottery, and which my odds are not good, you have better odds of getting hit by lightning twice than by winning the lottery. So I would strongly recommend, if you get hit by lightning on the second time and still live, go buy a lottery ticket, all right? Because it definitely, things are looking up for you and they are in your favor. But what happens is, though, with people is they'll do a lot of unethical things when it comes to money. And you will be tempted at some point in your life to be unethical with money. So I want to challenge you, have integrity when it comes to money. Earn it honestly. Don't cook the books. Don't apply for, or don't, you get money in a particular way that hurts other people. Don't be unethical with money just to put it in your pocket. And a lot of people really get hurt this way. A lot of people get damaged this way because there are unethical people in the world, and they take, for example, I just think that these places that just charge enormous amounts of interest and really take advantage of people when they're at a low moment, they're just borderline unethical to me. And they just take advantage, and don't earn an income that way by taking advantage of the weakness of others. And I challenge you to be ethical when it comes to your money. Earn your money the right way. Earn it ethically. Give a good day's work for a good day's pay. And this is how you will be tested in your life when it comes to your integrity. Be a person of integrity when it comes to your money. If you borrow money from somebody, pay them back. Fulfill your commitments when it comes to people. Be a person of integrity when it comes to money. And a lot of times, like we'll get credit cards and we'll run these credit cards up, and we just think of them as these big corporate banks, and it doesn't matter. And people they file bankruptcy and don't pay their bills all the time. And I'm okay doing that. And I just think, as a child of God, if you take a credit card and you borrow some money, and you are promising to that person, whether it's from a small town bank or a big time bank, that you're going to pay that back. Do all that you can to pay that back. I've shared this story. There's a lady that goes to our church. She's gone to our church now for about 20 years. And I have the utmost respect for her because she was in a marriage. She married, her husband was unethical. He had all kinds of debt that she did not know about. He ended up leaving her and left her with the debt. And I remember her coming to my office and saying, Pastor Mark, I just feel like that what I should do is just what everybody's telling me to do is to just file bankruptcy. It's not my problem. My husband did this, even though it was kind of a co-thing. And she said, but I just don't think that's right. And I'm going to tell you what, that lady for 10 years cut hair and worked side jobs. And I'll never forget the day she came to me and said, paid off every debt that I had. And that woman, ever since I've known her, I see her as nothing but a person of integrity because she was right with her money. Right with her money. She said, my husband, whether I knew it or not, signed on this, and I'm going to fulfill the debts that even the debts that I didn't know about, that he put in my name. A good name is rather to be chosen than great riches. So she lost a lot of money. She paid a ridiculous amount of interest. She paid a incredible amount of fines and things because of her mistakes of her husband, but she fulfilled her obligations. And that's a person of integrity. And you will be tested to do the same. The second is in commitments. So how will our integrity be tested? Through commitments. Through commitments. Be very slow and very careful when you make commitments. Okay? Think about what you're signing. Think about what you're saying. And I want to say this in particular when it comes to the marriage relationship. You are making a commitment before God, not before a judge. You don't need a notary there. You're doing it before the Lord. Okay? So this is a heavy commitment, and I think people they just see stars, and they're just they feel, oh man, I'm so in love, but make sure that you think about the commitment that you're making and that you are willing to follow through with it. Because it's a commitment. And you want to be a person of your word. So if you make a commitment, follow it. This is the thing. If you make a commitment and you break it, you're more likely to break the next commitment. And then you're more likely to break the commitment again. And then you're more likely to break the commitment again. So fight hard to keep that first commitment. Because once you start breaking commitments, then it just becomes a pattern. It just becomes a habit. This is who you are. So our integrity is tested by our commitments. So be careful in signing contracts. Be willing to stick with it and don't agree to things unless you plan to follow through with them. And that's the way your integrity is going to be tested. The third way is through our mouth. And this is the one that can get us in a lot of trouble, right? And the reason why I say that, and this is an area that I struggle in. I'll be standing up here and people will be coming up and they'll be talking to me and I'll say, hey, I'll call you this week. Okay? Now, if I say that to somebody, I need to follow through with that. Because if I say that I'm going to do this and I don't do it, then I am a person that doesn't keep my word. So be careful what you promise to do. The words you say with your mouth. I promise you I'll do this, or I promise you I'll do that. This is why James said, let your yes be yes and your no be no. Be very careful what you say. We need to think about every word that comes out of our mouth. And in particular, we get kind of caught up in the moment and we say stuff. Make sure that you say what you mean and mean what you say. Because every time you say you're going to do this and you do something else, it hurts your integrity just a little bit. So we're all going to be tested in this, and particularly those of us who speak for a living, okay? So make sure that you keep your word, that you fulfill the integrity, the words that you have promised. You be a person of integrity. So let's finish tonight with talking about what happens when we live with integrity. So we talked about why we should do it, because it pleases God, it benefits others, it simplifies life. The three greatest ways that we will be tested is how we handle money, in our commitments that we make, and with our mouth. What happens when we do live with integrity? One, we'll start with the negative, and then I have three positives. One, you will be misunderstood and mistreated. I know it sounds really negative, but that's what the writer of Proverbs said. The bloodthirsty hate, that's a strong word, right? The bloodthirsty hate the who? Blameless. Now, who's a blameless person? A blameless person is somebody that you can't find an accusation about. There's a couple of examples of this in the Bible. Remember Daniel when he was they passed this decree, and they passed this decree that you couldn't worship any other god but the God of Persia. And why did they do that? They did that because they couldn't find anything wrong with the guy. He was literally blameless. They couldn't find an accusation against him. And he was hated because of his integrity. I'd love to tell you that everybody's going to embrace you and love you, but that's not the truth. The reality is that if you're around a bunch of cockroaches and you're the light that shines light on the cockroaches don't like that. Now, I'm not calling people cockroaches, but you understand what I'm saying. The cockroaches run to the dark when you turn on the light. So if you're in an environment, like you're at a job, like I talked to a man this morning who said, look, it's really, really hard at my job right now. And it's really hard because I'm trying to do the right thing and everybody else is doing the wrong thing. So I'm trying, and so they're all kind of getting on me and trying to drag me down, and that's how it is going to be. When you live a life of integrity, the people that don't have integrity don't like you. So you can come to expect that. You'll be misunderstood and mistreated. Joseph, was not he a man of integrity? He would not sleep with his boss's wife. And what did it cost him? It cost him time in jail because she then lied about him. So he was a man of integrity, and he was hated because he wanted to do the right thing. And so I want to give you a little bit of a reality check, in that is, look, I'd love to tell you that, hey, you do the right thing, everything's going to go good. Well, it may go south initially. Doing the right thing may not be embraced. There's a lot of times you read, I'm kind of reading through the Old Testament prophets right now. And let me tell you, man, those guys, they were men of integrity. And they did what God asked them to do. And a lot of them paid dearly for it. They were not accepted because they were men of integrity. And the reality is that culture gets darker and darker, and we get more and more wicked. People of the light will be more and more despised. Jesus said, if they hated me, they will what? They will hate you. So if we identify with Christ and we live as Christ lived, Christ came to help people and heal people and restore people. And what was he? He was hated. Nobody lived a greater life of integrity than Jesus. They nailed him to a cross. For doing what? Telling them the truth. So, have I thoroughly discouraged you to have a person of integrity? But this is the truth. You need to be honest. You need to be realistic about what you will face if you're a person of integrity. Don't be persecuted because you're a jerk. I've heard people do that. They're jerks at their jobs, and they get persecuted, and they're just giving me a hard time because I'm a Christian. No, they're giving you a hard time because you're a jerk. Two different things. But if you're in a position of authority and other people are trying to get you to do things that are unethical, and you refuse to participate and you refuse to go down that road, you may lose your job. You may suffer some persecution, but it's okay because God knows. But you will be misunderstood and mistreated. Now let's talk about the positive things. Two, you will attract good people as friends. If you're a person of integrity, you will attract good people as friends. So this is the bloodthirsty hate the blameless, but the upright seeks his well-being. So the benefit of that is you're going to have people hate you, but you're going to have some really good people love you. You're going to surround yourself. You'll drive away the bad people, and the good people will say, I want to stand with that guy. I want to stand with that individual because they're a person of integrity. Light is drawn to the light. I want to be with that person. I want to be with that person who thinks that way. Cockroaches run together, people of the light run together, and if you'll be a person of integrity, then you'll attract people like that. And man, when you have a friend who is a person of integrity, it just makes for a great friendship. So you will attract good people as friends. This is a great benefit to being a person of integrity. Proverbs 2:7 says that God will protect you. Point number three, God will protect you. Proverbs 2:7, he is a shield to those who walk uprightly. He is a shield to those who walk uprightly. Great example of that is three guys in the book of Daniel. What were their names? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, right? Or Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Those three guys were told to bow down before this image of Nebuchadnezzar, and they refused to do so. And what happened as a result? They were tossed into the fiery furnace, but they were not consumed. And Nebuchadnezzar looks into the fire, and he says, it looks like there's four walking around. And one was like the presence of God, which I think was Christ himself in the fire with them. So God will protect you. Now, you may lose your life in the fire. I was just reading this recently about one of the martyrs, one of the thousands of martyrs that have died for their faith, a man who was burned at the stake. And they talk about how as he's dying, he's being consumed by this flame, but he does not appear to be in any kind of a pain. And his body is disintegrating, and he is preaching the gospel even as he is dying until the fire consumes his body. And I'm a big believer that whatever you face, and this, you may go through persecution that costs you your life, but God will be with you even though you walk through the valley of the shadow of death. He will not abandon you in your moment of great need. And what greater need do we have than walking from this life to the next? So he will be with us, right? So he will protect the person of integrity. And I believe that in death, and I also believe that in life. That God will protect. If you live a life of integrity, God will protect you. Now, you may not see it and you may not understand it until years and years later, but I'm telling you, God will protect you. And I have personally seen God work in ways that at the time didn't make any sense, but as I look back on my life, it's like God was protecting me. Not because I'm this great model of integrity. I try to do the right thing, but I think that there were times where, man, you wanted to be unethical, you did the right thing, but God, as I look back on my life now, God was looking out, and He protected me, and He'll protect you too. The fourth thing that we see from Proverbs, what happens when we live with integrity? You will be rewarded. You will be rewarded. The way of the Lord is strength for the upright. So I gave you a couple of examples of people earlier. Job was a guy that lived with integrity and was tested by Satan, right? And there's a verse in there that really jumps out to me about his life. It says, in all this. Now, if you've read the entire book of Job, you know that Job whined quite a bit. But there's an amazing verse in chapter 2 that says, in all this, Job sinned not, nor charged God foolishly. Okay, so what happened to Job? He got back twice what he had before. God rewarded him. What happened to Joseph? Joseph was sold into slavery by his brothers, falsely accused by Potiphar's wife, forgotten in jail, but continued to live a life to please God, right? He continued to be a man of integrity. What happened to him? He went to second in command in Egypt. With our microwave society, we lose hope too quick. Don't we? Anybody in the room get frustrated when the drive-thru takes too long? We all do, right? Because that's the age that we live in. So I think it's easy for us, since this is kind of, we get frustrated with things happen. We're so used to things happening so fast that we expect them to happen in life so fast. But God doesn't work. God's not like a microwave. He can do that, but most of the time, it takes a long time. There's a great book that's out there called Long Obedience in the Same Direction. Okay, and the point of that book is you just keep walking the right way and it'll pay off for you. But we live in the age of get rich quick schemes and how can I cut corners and how can I be unethical and how can I get to this destination faster? Just do what's right. And if you do what's right day after day after day after day, it'll pay off for you. And that's what he's saying. The way of the Lord is strength for the upright, but destruction will come to the workers of iniquity. So do the right thing. Live a life of integrity, and the byproduct of that is God will reward you. So, hopefully we've made a decent case for living a life of integrity. And I think, I know most of you, and I think that you're probably people of integrity. So maybe this isn't something you needed to hear, but something you just need to be reminded of. Because, it is, man. You see people and you see life. It seems like people are getting ahead the wrong way. You just keep doing what's right and God will bless you. Hang in there, okay? It's worth it. It pleases God. It benefits others. It simplifies life. And if you live a life of integrity, you're going to be misunderstood and mistreated, but you'll attract good friends, good people as friends. God will protect you, and in the end, you will be rewarded. Now, you may not see it here, but you'll see it someday. So keep walking in the right direction. All right? Okay, let's go to the Lord in prayer. Jeff, is Dan okay, or is he just sick? Okay. I wanted to pray for him if he probably needs prayer anyway, then. Okay. One of the first of the sermon, Dan Clark, who's been in our church a long time, kind of walked out and everybody scrambled, and I'd been thinking about it the whole sermon. So I just wanted to make sure Dan was okay, and I wanted to pray for him now. So, Father, thank you for this time we've had to be in your word. Thank you for this book of Proverbs and how it really challenges us and motivates us. And Lord, I want to pray that you'd help all of us to be people of integrity. Help us to be people of our word. Help us to not be unethical. Even if we make terrible agreements or terrible commitments, that we would fulfill those commitments because we are people of our word. Lord, I just ask that we would bring you glory through this way of living. Lord, I thank you for Dan being a part of our church. Lord, I'm grateful for his faithfulness. I'm sorry that he's not feeling well. I ask, Lord, that you would please touch his body. We have so many people sick in our church right now. Lord, and I just pray that you would restore Dan to health, and you would, and also touch the many people that are in our church who are sick, and help them through this time of difficulty. We ask that you would help us as we leave. Help us to live what we heard this morning and live what we heard tonight, and be a model to our city of people who love Jesus. We pray this in your wonderful name. Amen.